Okay, so welcome to this video. We are still under week 2, looking at the topic functions, while and if statements, and its application in social network analysis. So for this video, we are going to concentrate on if statements. So in the previous video, we discussed on how if statements can be used, including the else if statements. So here we are just going to concentrate on how these if statements usually operate without combining them with functions and while statements. So the first thing, we create a folder on our desktop or any other directory. So I'll call it if statements. If statements, yeah, like that. So you need to open up your source code writer application. So in this case, I'm using Microsoft Visual Studio Code because we've used this in the previous videos, so we are just using this, but you can also use code blocks or so on. So open folder, then go to your desktop, so where you've saved the file, then select that folder, like the folder from creating. Then inside Microsoft Visual Studio Code, we are going to create the file which is, I'll call it introduction. So .cpp, because there's extensions, cpp is for C++. So each and every program, we said, starts with hashtag include IO stream, like that. Then this IO stream, we said it accepts both input and output, that's C in, C out. Then you need to use this standard namespace. So using namespace std or standard because it allows us to use endline, C in, C out, and so on. Then each and every program should have a function. In this case, it's the main function. Then we need to return a certain value. So we are returning a 0 because it's an integer. Okay, now we are good to go and do a little bit of if statements. So if statements, these are just conditions one would create. So in the previous video, we saw that we used if statements to make a choice. So if the option was 1, we needed to add. If we place 2, to multiply. Then if we had to place 3, it means the program was supposed to exit. So I'll give a comment, single line comment, to say write a program that will grade a student. Okay, so it's more like a grading system. Okay, so remember, if you are a lecturer or a student, there must be a certain course or subject. So that course will be carrying grades. It can be 0% up to 100%. Now, because that 0 and 100 or any other number in between is a number, we'll say int because those are integers. Okay, so if you want to create a variable which will record the marks that a certain student gets, we just need to create a variable which is an integer. So I can say course, let me say it's a course grade I'm recording. So I'll say course grade. Okay, so course grade is an integer which will record whatever grade you've entered. Now let's say this program needs to allow a student to enter a specific mark they got in a certain course. Then later on, it's displaying if it's a maybe distinction, if it's a merit, it's if a credit, or pass, fail, whatsoever. So let's do that. So first of all, we need to allow the user or a student to enter the mark they got in a particular course. So display with cout will display a statement to the students to say enter the mark and in the course. Okay, we don't know which course, so we end the line like that. So this statement to be displayed to the user, so allowing the user to enter that particular input or the mark they end, we need to use cin to accept that input. Then we need to link it to the course grade because that's the variable which will be storing that particular mark. Okay, so now at this point we understand because we've been talking about this, so on and so on. Now coming to if statements, so say if, so inside these brackets we need to put a condition. So if, remember course grade, okay, so we say if course grade is equal to, meaning equivalent, equal equivalent. So if course grade is equivalent to something, let me say 1, it should give you this. So we used this in the previous example, but for today, since a mark can be greater than, less than, or equal to something, so we'll be using those particular symbols. So we'll say if course grade, okay, is greater than or equal to, is greater than or equal to, let me say if course grade is greater than or equal to 75. Let's start with 75. So we need to tell a student that okay, you've got a distinction. Okay, we'll see out, we'll say see out distinction, see out distinction. So our program soon will be advancing, so I'm just trying to give a simple scenario here. So if we say course grade is greater than or equal to 75 distinction, let's try to save this program and run it on our terminal to see how it operates. So say g++, the name of our program, it's introduction.cpp, then output file, let's say example 1, let's say example 1, let me just say example 1. Okay, so let's learn that executable file. So enter the mark, and in this case they are saying if it's greater than 75 distinction. Let me enter 75. It is saying a distinction. What if I run this code again? I say 100, it's saying distinction. But if I enter 110, it's saying distinction, but we know 110 is not a mark in this particular case because we need to end up to 100. So we need to make sure that we use proper validation here. So what we can do is we can say if, okay, so the condition, again we put another condition inside. So here we'll say if course grade, okay, is greater than or equal to 75, we say it's a distinction. Okay, so here we'll say and so we want to make sure that we don't exceed 100. Okay, want to make sure that we don't exceed 100. So here we say if course grade is less than or equal to 100, okay, is less than or equal to 100, now we can give that particular student a distinction. So I'll explain just a minute. You explain, let's see what's the meaning behind this. So distinction, so control S to save, come back to our terminal, new terminal, and then G++. So here let's just call it example 2. Today I don't want to experience any errors, so I'm just creating multiple things. This is example 2. So we say example 2, let's run it, enter the mark end in the course. So if we say 75, we expect a distinction. We can say any number in between distinction. So let's say 100, distinction. What if we say 110? So it's still saying distinction, but we've validated this. So it's just that yes, we are using if statement, but we haven't used the else statement. So if this statement is true, yes, it will execute and it will give us the values, but else it means if this statement is false. For example, if I enter 110, it means the statement is false, so it needs to give a certain comment. So let me just include else so that you understand. If we say else, so this is the syntax. We use these curly braces, then you say cout, let me say invalid mark, okay, invalid mark, then you end the line like that. So control S to save, I come back to my terminal, we execute that example 2. So now let me say I enter 110, we see what's happening. So it's still saying distinction. Let me see where's the mistake. So here we said course grade is greater than or equal to 75, okay. So it's a distinction. Here if it's less than or equal to 100, it will become a distinction, okay. So if it's above that, we say okay. So the mistake is because you haven't finished our program, because we don't have else if, we just have if and else. So let me just continue, then you see how it works, okay. So here let me say else if. So else if, let me say if it's greater than or equal to 65, but less than or equal to 75, that particular person, not 75 but 74, so that particular person should get, which one comes next, distinction, merit, whatsoever. Let me say you have a credit or merit, by the way, you have a merit, okay. So let's say you have a merit. So again, let's copy this. We say if that person now has a 55 here, then should be like that 64, because we don't want to reach this number, and this is our starting point. So here we say credit. So I'll explain everything. I just want to show you how this thing works here, and I'm a little bit faster. So if we get, let me say 50, then here we limit it to 54 because we already have 55. So here we just say it's a pass. And then last 3, if you get let me say below 0. Okay, so greater than or equal to 0, then here we just limit it 49. It means you failed, so it's a fail. So Control S to save. Come back to my terminal. Let's run this particular thing. Okay, so we had this, so let's run it. So I entered 110, so we are still getting distinction, so something is wrong here. Let me now find out what's that. Okay, what if I enter 55? Let me see. Nothing, so something is wrong just at the beginning. So if course grade is greater than or equal to 75, greater than or equal to 75, here we say less than or equal to 100, distinction, greater than or equal to 65, so 74. Okay, let me just validate well. I'll pause the video for now. Yeah, so I'm just from validating. I've went through the program, so nothing is wrong. It's just that when you're using Microsoft Visual Studio Code and you are just updating the same file over and over again, it can be stuck with the previous code sometimes. So it's advised that you create another executable file. So let's try to create another executable file. So let's try to call it since we have example 1, 2, let's try to call it example 3. So nothing was wrong, otherwise it's just executable file. So we have this example 3. So example 3, so I was saying if we enter something which is not okay, let me just start explaining from here. So we are saying we have this variable which is course grade, which will accept the value to be stored of the mark which is being entered by the user. Once the user sees enter the mark ending the course, let me say we have this first condition which says if course grade is greater than or equal to 75 and course grade is less than or equal to 100, so it means between 75 and 100 you'll be getting a distinction. So if you get a 75, you get a distinction. Okay, so if you get, let me say 88 or any number in between, is still distinction. If you get 100, it's distinction. Okay, so but what if we enter 110? Okay, so if we enter 110 or any number above 100, it will say invalid mark. Why? Because of this else statement which said invalid mark. So else statement works if a certain condition is false, it will execute. So in this particular case, we know all these validations we've made, there is no mark which says we can reach up to 110 or greater than that. So that statement is false. No wonder it will say invalid mark. So else statement has been executed. We come to the next line where we say else if course grade is greater than or equal to 65 and course grade is less than or equal to 74, we display merit. So it means if you have a range of from 65 to 74, you've earned your what? Merit. So if I say 65, it's a merit. Let me say I say we don't exceed 74, so I can say 70, it's still merit. Can say 74, it's still merit. Okay, But if I say 75, remember 75 was a distinction. You go to the distinction. Oh, I've entered 75 at the wrong. Yeah, so it's still distinction. So still the same with this range of 55 to 64 to get a credit. If you get 55, yeah, it's a credit. If you get 64, still credit. So we come to this. If you get 50 to 54, it's a pass. So we have a pass, we have a pass. But if you get anything below below 49, it means that's just automatically, it's automatically fail. So you're 49, okay, you know this is a fail. Again, you have a fail, okay. So that's how we can use these if statements. So sorry for making this video longer. I wasn't expecting it to be this duration, 20 something minutes. No. So yeah, that's it. So I was doing this deliberately, separating the topics such as the functions, while statements, and these the last part, which was the if statements. I was doing it deliberately so that we just now combine all the concepts we've learned in the last video, which will be now for uh, this application in social network analysis. So I'll just repeat one more. We've talked about functions, we've talked about while statements and if statements in C++. So application in social network analysis is what we're going to do next. So in this particular case, we'll be answering this question. We are going to apply whatever we've learned in the 3 previous videos. Then you see how simple it is to deal with these questions. So this is what we are going to talk about. Otherwise, if we had to go directly, you couldn't have gotten the concept, and it could have looked more complex, but it's just simple. So let me just close this. So next video we are going to cover this whole topic, its application in social network analysis, then we are done. So my name is Soko James, representing KMU Cyber Security Tutorials. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.